We'll have herd immunity by April. Dr. Marty McCary. It's clear many doctors believe the pandemic ended long ago, and they spread this belief to millions of Americans. So, to answer Dr. Hall's question, here's where the idea that the worst of the pandemic was behind us came from, presented along with the cumulative number of Americans who had died of COVID by that date, according to Our World in Data. Dr. John Ioannidis, March 19, 2020, 266 deaths. If only part of resources mobilized to implement extreme measures for COVID-19 had been invested towards enhancing influenza vaccination uptake, tens of thousands of influenza deaths might have been averted. Dr. John Ioannidis, April 17, 2020, 39,591 deaths. Acknowledging for the fact that the epidemic is still evolving, and we cannot be sure whether we will hit even higher peaks in the future, although this doesn't seem to be the case, at least for the European countries, and it seems to be that even in the U.S., in most states we're very close to the peak, if not past the peak, the risk is something that should be manageable, as opposed to the panic and horror stories that are circulating about. Dr. John Mandrola, May 1st, 2020, 68,515 deaths. I recoil against the idea that moderation of distancing measures in places in the U.S. and Sweden is akin to human sacrifice. That sort of hyperbole and fear-mongering in medicine always leads to bad decisions. Also, no U.S. hospital is now unprepared. It's May, not March 9th. Dr. John Mandrola, May 4th, 2020, 72,831 deaths. 1. U.S. hospitals not close to being overrun. It's the opposite in most places. 2. Every place I know of is opening up for more regular health care. Good. 3. We have learned how to limit nosocomial thread. It's May, not March. Dr. John Mandrola, May 5th, 2020, 75,010 deaths. U.S. hospitals are now prepared and in little danger of being overwhelmed. In fact, many hospitals are so dormant they are nearing financial ruin. Dr. John Mandrola, May 7th, 2020, 79,237 deaths. May is different from March. People are not stupid. Public health surveillance is better. Hospitals are ready. NYC-like situations are unlikely now in the U.S. Dr. Scott Atlas, June 29, 2020, 126,869 deaths. We expected more cases with more social mingling, but the fact is the overwhelming majority of these cases are in younger, healthier people. These people do not have a significant problem. They do not have the serious complications. They do not die. And so it's fantastic news that we have a lot of cases, but we don't see deaths going up. And what that means is, A, we're doing a better job of protecting the vulnerable. B, we're in good shape here. Dr. Scott Atlas, July 23rd, 2020, 145,106 deaths. I'm cautiously optimistic because we actually know a lot now. We know the fatality rate is much lower, and we know who to protect. We are doubling down on the high-risk group. We are doing better with patients in the hospitals. I think we have to tell the American people this is not out of control here. Dr. Michael Levitt, July 25th, 2020, 147,164 deaths. U.S. COVID will be done in 4 weeks with a total reported death below 170,000. How will we know it is over? Like for Europe, when all-cause excess deaths are at normal level for a week. Reported COVID-19 deaths may continue after 25 August, and reported cases will, but it will be over. Dr. Monica Gandhi, August 8th, 2020, 162,312 deaths. A high rate of asymptomatic infection is a good thing. It's a good thing for the individual and a good thing for society. It is an intriguing hypothesis that asymptomatic infection triggering immunity may lead us to get more population-level immunity. That itself will limit spread. Dr. John Ioannidis, August 25, 2020. 177,693 deaths. Very few hospitals were eventually stressed, and only for a couple of weeks. Most hospitals maintained largely empty wards, expecting tsunamis that never came. Tragically, many health systems faced major adverse consequences, not by COVID-19 cases overload, but for very different reasons. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Doctors Martin Kulldorff, Jay Bhattacharya, and Michael Levitt, September 24th, 2020, 201,821 deaths. Governor Ron DeSantis. Is there anybody that thinks COVID-19 represents a significant threat in terms of overwhelming hospitals in the United States? Dr. Kulldorff. No, Dr. Bhattacharya. It's the opposite, Governor. I think a lot of hospitals around the country have faced financial difficulties because they've been empty. At this point, certainly not. Dr. Levitt. I certainly would agree, but I think that we're in the minority worldwide. People are still locking down and engaging in behavior which is likely to be detrimental in the long run. Dr. John Mandrola, December 15, 2020, 307,343 deaths. Barring something very unforeseen, the COVID-19 pandemic is over soon. Such good news. Dr. Marty McCary, December 22, 2020, 326,966 deaths. There's a false construct out there. There's a recommendation that we need to get every American immunized in order to get a handle on the pandemic. The reality is that about 25 to 50% of Americans have already had the infection and have some natural immunity. So we may only need to get an additional 20% of the population immunized by, say, February or March to really hit those 70% herd immunity levels. Dr. Martin Kulldorff, December 24, 2020, 333,135 deaths. If the young live normal lives, some will be infected, but their risk is less than from lockdown collateral damage. Pandemic will then be naturally over in 3 to 6 months. Dr. John Ioannidis, December 28, 2020, 339,875 deaths. Several countries like India had 60% seroprevalence already by November, which means that they have pretty much reached herd immunity already. The same may be true for some hard-hit locations even in the USA and Europe, e.g. locations in northern Greece, where, sadly, the virus has already spread very widely. Dr. Marty McCary, January 1st, 2021, 352,760 deaths. To hit herd immunity this spring, we may only need 20 to 30% of people not previously infected to get the vaccine. By March, up to 50% of U.S. will have natural immunity from prior infection. Dr. Vinay Prasad, January 13, 2021, 389,829 deaths. Let me be perfectly clear. Children do not need a SARS-CoV-2 vaccine before they are permitted to return to normal activities, such as school and visiting loved ones. If the epidemic is abating, how can you justify giving 100 kids those AEs, adverse events? Dr. Marty McCary, January 17, 2021, 402,953 deaths. I believe herd immunity is closer than people think. I predict April. The old guard medical establishment has been dismissive, inappropriately, of the data on natural immunity from prior infection and its prevalence. Dr. Marty McCary, January 22, 2021, 419,206 deaths. COVID daily cases are down 27% in the last 13 days. Natural immunity is slowing the spread. We will see a rapid case decel in Feb and March. Dr. Marty McCary, January 24, 2021, 424,555 deaths. We may be starting to see the early signs of herd immunity. There has been a 32% decrease in daily cases over the last 15 days. Dr. Monica Gandhi, January 29, 2021, 441,750 deaths. You only have to live like this until summer. Please listen to all of the optimism and try to phase out the doom. Dr. Monica Gandhi, January 31, 2021, 446,538 deaths. What will happen with vaccines is that when we see the hospitalizations go away, 100% effective for this dire outcome so far, still marveling, all arguments on messaging and who can be the most doom-filled will go away. Dr. Stefan Baral and Monica Gandhi, February 8, 2021, 468,902 deaths. Dr. Stefan Baral, I don't think variants are going to cause a third wave of COVID-19 in the coming weeks or months across Northern Europe or North America. Dr. Monica Gandhi, completely agree. Dr. John Mandrola, February 13, 2021, 483,543 deaths. Twitter comment. Reasons to be cheerful. The R rate is definitely below 1 for the first time since July. Infection rates falling faster than anticipated. Cases down 26% on week before. Deaths down 27%. Dr. Mandrola. The good news on COVID-19 continues. Dr. John Mandrola, February 14, 2021, 484,694 deaths. Good news on COVID-19 is getting to be a routine now. Dr. Marty McCary, February 18, 2021, 492,250 deaths. We'll have herd immunity by April. COVID cases have dropped 77% in 6 weeks. Experts should level with the public about the good news. There is reason to think the country is racing toward an extremely low level of infection. As more people have been infected, most of whom have mild or no symptoms, there are fewer Americans left to be infected. At the current trajectory, I expect COVID will be mostly gone by April, allowing Americans to resume normal life. Dr. Vinay Prasad, February 18th, 2021. 492,250 deaths. This New York Times story on January 24th, vaccines alone won't end the pandemic, did not age well as of February 18th. It was completely off and just another squeeze of fear. Enough with these models. They have often been erroneous. Dr. Monica Gandhi, February 22, 2021, 499,101 deaths. We are just facing like complete dawn of hope and light and love. Like it's going to be so great. It is getting so great. So what happened, right? Like March 11th was the day that the WHO declared this a worldwide pandemic. November 9th, we got the first press release from the first vaccine. Phase 3 clinical trial that fast. And then we've had 7 Phase 3 clinical trials. So we have 7 vaccines in circulation around the globe that work. And they work exactly using the same protein in different ways using that protein. And they work beautifully. And they all work beautifully against preventing what even made us notice on January 31st, 2019, or December 31st, 2019, that something terrible was happening, which is severe disease. They all work almost 100% to prevent 100% for hospitalizations, and then, like in the 90s, to prevent you not even feeling well at home. So they're amazing. I started in April 2020, and I hope I can stop it in April 2021. I think that may be a little soon, but we will get to herd immunity, and it will all fall away. It will all fall away. All this anguish, all this yelling at each other, all this politicization, all this depression, it will fall away. So we're fully vaccinated. We cannot get sick, and we should be close. Vaccinated people should be close, and they should spend time together. Dr. Zubin Damania, February 22, 2021, 499,101 deaths. So we have tons of PhD epidemiologists who are painting gloom and doom pictures everywhere. Well, first it was this, and then, okay, now we have a vaccine, but you know what? The variants are coming. So we're probably going to have to wear 7 masks and stay shut down. And by the way, don't even think about opening schools. Why are you thinking about opening schools? Oh, by the way, it's your bad behavior that caused all this death, and so we're going to shame you. And on top of that, it's never going to get better. Before, we were like, God, the amount of fear that's being generated is out of proportion to the actual response to the threat. And actually, our response may be damaging. But now the vibe is, oh my God, the end is here. Dr. Monica Gandhi, February 23rd, 2021. 501,359 deaths. Doom and gloom seems to be part of the narrative from many in the scientific community because they got politicized in the last administration, and they are sticking to it. But it is okay. All of this will fall away when we watch what happens, like is happening elsewhere, with mass vax. Dr. Monica Gandhi, February 23, 2021, 501,359 deaths. Dr. Gandhi. All the vaccines down the line will offer 100% protection against hospitalization from COVID-19. I've been surprised by all the doom and gloom messaging about the variants and the vaccines, and I'm concerned it will lead to vaccine hesitancy. We should be pushing more optimism about the vaccines. Interviewer question. Do you believe we're truly near the end? Dr. Gandhi. Yes, I truly believe we're panicking way too much about the variants. It's quite common for any RNA virus to mutate at high rate. I'm extremely optimistic that all of the vaccines will prevent severe illness, even against variants. Dr. Lucy McBride, March 2, 2021, 514,948 deaths. COVID-19 cases are dropping, but anxiety is everywhere. Doctors Vinay Prasad and Monica Gandhi, March 2, 2021, 514,948 deaths. Audio podcast discussing the end of the pandemic and the need to reopen schools. Dr. Monica Gandhi, March 4th, 2021, 519,394 deaths. I genuinely, with all my heart, apologize for anyone who continues to try to scare you about variants. We have been through so much already. This is not like coming down from another surge. This time we have the increasing protection from vaccines as cases/hospitalizations drop. Honestly, it makes me so sad. Like the public has not been terrorized already by the reality of this virus. The decreasing cases and hospitalizations in places where vaccination is occurring quickly, variants notwithstanding, is the only reality we need to understand now. Dr. Lucy McBride, March 9, 2021, 525,809 deaths. I've been yearning for an end to the pandemic. Now that it's here, I'm a little afraid. The pandemic will end. With dropping case rates and 3 incredible vaccines robustly protecting us from COVID-19, soon we'll be able to relax the restrictions of pandemic life. Dr. John Mandrola, March 10, 2021, 527,345 deaths. The pandemic is essentially done. Human life has to be more than avoiding one pathogen. Dr. John Mandrola, March 10, 2021, 527,345 deaths. Kentucky has vaccinated about 1 in 3 older people. Connecticut has done even better. The vaccine squelches severe cases. Millions have natural immunity. Young have almost no risk. The pandemic of bad disease is nearly over, and this is a really worthy cause of celebration. Dr. John Mandrola, March 11, 2021, 528,887 deaths. I wish I had wrote almost done here in the U.S. Frustration with fear-mongering got the best of me. Dr. Marty McCary, March 11, 2021, 528,887 deaths. Natural immunity plus vax-immune equals herd immune soon. Dr. Lucy McBride, March 23, 2021, 540,572 deaths. It's what some medical professionals, including myself, are calling post-pandemic stress. Dr. Monica Gandhi, March 24, 2021, 542,034 deaths. Natural immunity after COVID-19 infection is likely lifelong, extrapolating from data on other coronaviruses that cause severe illness, SARS and MERS. Dr. Marty McCary, March 24, 2021, 542,034 deaths. Anthony Fauci has been saying that the country needs to vaccinate 70% to 85% of the population to reach herd immunity from COVID-19. But he inexplicably ignores natural immunity. If you account for previous infections, herd immunity is likely close at hand. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, March 25, 2021, 543,379 deaths. The virus is seasonal, and late fall and winter is its season. It is very unlikely, given that this is the case, that the virus will spread very widely during the summer months. We should not be particularly concerned about the variants that have arisen to date. First, prior infection with the wild-type virus and vaccination provide protection against severe outcomes arising from reinfection with the mutated virus. Second, though the mutants have taken over the few remaining cases, their rise has coincided with a sharp drop in cases and deaths, even in countries where they have come to dominate. Dr. Vinay Prasad, March 30, 2021, 547,309 deaths. Perhaps COVID-19 is winding down. This summer, when cases fall, when vaccination grows, put down your iPads and phones and meet real people in real life. Dr. Monica Gandhi, April 1, 2021, 549,480 deaths. I have a new saying. Even the most doom-filled, pessimistic, variant-steeped expert is no match for the vaccines. Dr. Tracy Hogue, April 2, 2021, 550,372 deaths. The same trend continues in Israel. As of yesterday, just over 60% of the population has received the first dose of the vaccine, and there appears to be no need to vaccinate children to reach herd immunity, as anticipated. Dr. Lucy McBride, April 3, 2021, 551,128 deaths. The first steps toward post-pandemic health are seemingly simple yet vexingly hard for most of us. We have every reason to be hopeful. COVID-related deaths and hospitalizations are falling fast. Dr. Lucy McBride, April 3, 2021, 551,128 deaths. But as you know, once you've been vaccinated, your risk of death and severe illness essentially goes away. The risk is of getting milder illness, and even that risk goes down as herd immunity takes hold. Dr. Marty Makary, April 3, 2021, 551,128 deaths. Alaska had 0 COVID deaths in the last 10 days. They are number 2 in the nation in their vax rate. More states will hit herd immunity this month. Others will get there in May, depending on several factors. Cases in unvaccinated young people, most ASX or mild, will linger. Dr. Marty Makary, April 3, 2021, 551,128 deaths. Herd immunity has many definitions, but that looks like herd immunity to me. Dr. Lucy McBride, April 5, 2021, 551,907 deaths. Preparing for Post-Pandemic Life, a Doctor's Guide. Hope is alive. COVID-19 case rates and hospitalizations are falling fast. Dr. Lucy McBride, April 6, 2021, 552,739 deaths. After a year under duress, many of us will have a hard time with re-entry. Some degree of anxiety is expected, so I coined the term FONO, or fear of normal. Dr. Lucy McBride, April 6, 2021, 552,739 deaths. The risks of getting COVID-19 and transmitting SARS-CoV-2 both drop significantly after vaccination. Neither risk is zero. Zero isn't even on the menu. As we approach herd immunity, these risks will get even smaller than they already are. Dr. Lucy McBride, April 13, 2021, 559,625 deaths. The benefits of patient-doctor rapport and the human connection, especially as we address the enormous post-pandemic health toll on our physical and mental health, huge. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, April 14, 2021, 560,562 deaths. We should no longer look at cases as a marker of doom to come, right? Because the vaccine is incredibly effective. There's just good news about we can talk about the Johnson & Johnson bit in a bit, but like on the whole, the vaccine, or it's just an incredible achievement, and in many ways has defanged the epidemic. It's taken away the specter of death and hospitalization that comes with the disease for the older population, to the extent that the older population is vaccinated. And so the worry that we have, overrunning hospital systems, large numbers of people dying from getting COVID, we should stop thinking that way when we see cases. Doctors J. Bhattacharya and Zubin Damania, April 14, 2021, 560,562 deaths. Dr. Damania, do you think the danger is gone? Where are we in that? Dr. Bhattacharya, I think we're close. I think we're very, very close to that. I think that and in many places it is gone. Just be paid at a high cost, of course, but it's very close to that. Dr. Lucy McBride, April 19th, 2021, 563,894 deaths. I've been using the off-ramp analogy with patients, both for how restrictions should end and how we can expect our brains to adjust post-pandemic. Dr. Monica Gandhi, April 20th, 2021, 564,731 deaths. It's simple math. We don't need to vaccinate those under 11 to get to herd immunity. Dr. Monica Gandhi, April 21st, 2021, 565,629 deaths. Think we are getting closer and closer to that inflection point where things turn around in these regions of the U.S. So this is important. We are not in a fourth surge overall. Dr. Monica Gandhi, April 21st, 2021, 565,629 deaths. Israel has population-level immunity. We'll get there, but it will take a good part of the next 3 months to get to or exceed where Israel is right now. The difference is we have 330 million people and they have 9 million. If I thought herd immunity had to happen at 90%, which we were thinking 4 months or even a week ago, I'd be more worried. But now that we see it's not going to be that high, I'm not as worried. Dr. Lucy McBride, April 21, 2021, 565,629 deaths. Vaccines aren't 100% effective, though these are close, but we don't need them to be 100% to gradually resume regular life as we head toward herd immunity. Dr. Lucy McBride, April 22, 2021, 566,570 deaths. My humble impression is this. Nothing in life is risk-free. Certainly the risk of COVID transmission is higher with the circulating variants, but as we edge toward herd immunity, outdoor masking is less important, if at all, unless in a crowded space like a rally with shouting, etc. Dr. Monica Gandhi, April 25, 2021, 568,392 deaths. We certainly seem to have reached inflection point in U.S. with around 32,000 cases today, lowest since June. See inflection on CDC graph. This is at 42.2% first dose as of today. My data analyst had predicted this by end week, so seems, like Israel, once it starts, cases go down fast. Dr. Monica Gandhi, April 29, 2021. 571,407 deaths. SF, San Francisco, may be at herd immunity now. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, May 3, 2021, 573,769 deaths. So we've done a very good job protecting the vulnerable with this vaccine, but there's a 1,000-fold difference in the risk of death between young and old. And you take away the old from the population that could die from the virus vaccine, you've defanged it. So there's a lot of good news to tell here. Dr. Lucy McBride, May 4, 2021, 574,644 deaths. I wrote an article for the Huffington Post about what I call coronaphobia, and I also wrote a piece for the Washington Post about what I call fear of normal, or phono. What I'm seeing is an epidemic of unbridled fear that is basically the reverberations of the anxiety that we all experienced when the pandemic was happening in full force. As the pandemic comes under much better control, we need to shift our thinking and then our behaviors to reflect reality. Dr. Marty McCary, May 4, 2021, 574,644 deaths. In February, I projected that, based on the current trajectory, we'd see significant population immunity take hold in April from the combination of vaccinated and natural immunity. While most states are now witnessing the strong suppression of the epidemic today, other states will get there in May. But herd immunity is not a finish line. In that article, I maintained that coronavirus will be here for decades to come. The question is, at what point is it no longer a major public health threat? For most states, it's now. Dr. Vinay Prasad, May 4, 2021, 574,644 deaths. I have been out and about in the USA lately. At least here, COVID is ending. It's visible. Dr. Monica Gandhi, May 5th, 2021, 575,458 deaths. June 15th is when we're, California, going to be done. Get to herd immunity. He's, Governor Newsom, going to have to open up more without masks. All of that will show us as we mingle the cases aren't going up, that we have enough of the population being immune. Dr. Vinay Prasad, May 8th, 2021, 577,651 deaths. Vast majority of kids recover quickly from SARS-CoV-2. And after all adults are vaccinated, their risk of COVID will decline precipitously. It's okay to acknowledge that COVID-19 is not an emergency for kids. Dr. Monica Gandhi, May 10th, 2021. 578,316 deaths. What I have seen in this pandemic is that experts start saying same thing. We need boosters. Immunity won't be long-lived. Can't reach herd immunity. Schools sources of spread. Americans won't get to 70% vax. Demand slowing. Variants will escape immune system. Then becomes truth. Dr. Marty McCary, May 15th, 2021, 581,664 deaths. Dr. Eric Topol, the first time without a red state in the U.S. pandemic. Dr. McCary, nice herd immunity, Eric. Dr. Marty McCary, May 21st, 2021, 585,056 deaths. COVID cases are collapsing in front of our eyes. Daily cases are now 1/10 the number of daily flu cases in the middle of a mild flu season, with a now identical case fatality rate. Projections for the coming weeks and months are even more favorable. That's because roughly 80% to 85% of adults are now immune. More than 6 in 10 adults are now vaccinated, and more than half of unvaccinated adults have natural immunity from prior infection. In public health, when a virus has trouble jumping around because more than 8 in 10 adults in a community are blocking its transmission, we call that herd immunity. Yet some people want the pandemic to stretch out longer. Dr. Monica Gandhi, May 24th, 2021, 586,190 deaths. 7 reasons why we should not need boosters for COVID-19. Coronaviruses are RNA viruses like influenza and HIV, which is actually a retrovirus, but do not mutate as quickly as either one. However, the COVID-19 virus will not be mutating like this when we tamp down transmission with mass vaccination. In conclusion, I and many of my infectious disease colleagues expect the immunity from natural infection or vaccination to COVID-19 to be durable. Dr. Monica Gandhi, May 25th, 2021, 586,829 deaths. I wanted to explain what it feels like to be an ID doctor in the U.S. with measles. Once we get to control of COVID, which we are or already have, which is similar to the concept of herd immunity, COVID is no longer the public's problem, but an ID doctor's problem. For instance, I have seen measles in my career, but it has been rare and occurred due to someone unvaccinated here traveling back from a place with more vaccine hesitancy in Europe or place with more measles circulating or a community declining vax here. Rare. No longer public's problem. Dr. Monica Gandhi, May 25th, 2021, 586,829 deaths. Disagree with conclusion we can't get to herd immunity without kids being vaccinated. In past 4 weeks with adult vax, COVID incidence has decreased by 50% among kids. Dr. Monica Gandhi, May 26, 2021, 587,814 deaths. California really has the lowest in-person learning in entire U.S., although we have likely reached herd immunity by now. Dr. Lucy McBride, May 26, 2021, 587,814 deaths. Parents need to role model confidence and optimism about the end of the pandemic. Allison Krug, Drs. Tracy Hogue, Lucy McBride, and Monica Gandhi, May 26, 2021, 587,814 deaths. Children should return to their normal lives this summer and in the upcoming school year without masks and regardless of their vaccination status. Overall, the risk to children is too low to justify the remaining restrictions they face. This low risk for children nearly vanishes as cases plummet. As we saw in Israel and Britain, vaccinating adults indirectly protects children. The same trend is evident here in the United States. Adult vaccination has lowered COVID-19 incidence among children by 50% in the past 4 weeks. Dr. Marty Makary, May 27, 2021, 589,164 deaths. They are moving the goalposts. Now that 80 to 85% of the adult U.S. population is immune, vax plus natural immunity, they suddenly stop talking about herd immunity and suggest it will never happen. Dr. Monica Gandhi, June 4th, 2021, 592,707 deaths. With the vaccines plus natural immunity getting us to population immunity, herd immunity, it is so easy now to message on COVID-19 because it will end. Not eradicate, but like measles, not bother the public, just ID doctors. Dr. Marty Makary, June 8th, 2021, 594,078 deaths. With more than 8 in 10 adults protected from either contracting or transmitting the virus, it can't readily propagate by jumping around in the population. In public health, we call that herd immunity, defined broadly on the Johns Hopkins COVID information webpage as when most of a population is immune. It's not eradication, but it's powerful. Dr. Marty Makary, June 8, 2021, 594,078 deaths. There's a lot of good news out there, and I think that people need to hear that good news right now. People have an entirely distorted perception of risk. People need to be careful if they're unvaccinated and not had the infection, but we need to move on at some point. Dr. Monica Gandhi, June 8, 2021, 594,078 deaths. San Francisco on track to be first CA metro city to reach full herd immunity. Dr. Monica Gandhi, June 8, 2021, 594,078 deaths. You don't need to vaccinate the whole population to get to herd immunity. Dr. John Mandrola, June 11, 2021, 595,482 deaths. It appears to me that we have crushed COVID by simply vaccinating susceptible adults. Why not wait for more data before extending these novel therapies to young people? Dr. Monica Gandhi, June 21, 2021, 598,165 deaths. San Francisco nears herd immunity. I and others on CGTN. When you get to herd immunity, those unvaccinated protected by others' immunity. Dr. Monica Gandhi, June 22, 2021, 598,509 deaths. And cases continue to go lower, despite 20% being Delta. So it is okay to want to motivate vaccination, but please don't continue the doom-gloom messaging, please. Dr. Monica Gandhi, June 23, 2021, 598,895 deaths. No, we are all Delta variant right now, but look. Plummeting cases since April 14 when we passed 40%, first dose. Cases continue to go down. Deaths reached less than 300. This is the impact of vaccines on the U.S. epidemic. Instead of doom, celebration that we have means to end epidemic in U.S. Dr. Vinay Prasad, June 23, 2021, 598,895 deaths. First, let us all remember cases are falling precipitously. The raw number of adolescent cases is the point that is falling. The actual numbers show both COVID and MIS-C is plummeting with adult vaccination. Dr. Monica Gandhi, June 24, 2021, 599,236 deaths. Children are not more susceptible to the Delta variant. They're threefold less likely to get any infection with any variant with any ancestral strain, and they're half as likely to spread it. And they can mask on the plane, as they should. You yourself are completely protected against the Delta variant, and you should go and enjoy your summer. It's been a hard time, and people should have their summer. Delta variant, Delta schmariant. Doctors Martin Kulldorff and Jay Bhattacharya, June 27, 2021, 600,000 deaths. The pandemic is on its way out. Dr. Monica Gandhi, June 29, 2021, 600,488 deaths. I feel really protected against all these variants by my vaccine, and I also feel that I can't spread it to others. These vaccines are effective against variants. They make it so that you can't transmit. Nothing has changed with the Delta variant. Doctors Vinay Prasad and Marty McCary, June 30, 2021, 600,788 deaths. Dr. Prasad. What is the term used in ID-EPI for RT dropping to less than 1 due to natural immunity and vaccination? CC at Marty McCary. Dr. McCary. The term is herd immunity, but that was before the human immune became politicized. We now say high population immunity to avoid arguing with people moving the goalposts. Dr. Monica Gandhi, July 15, 2021, 604,568 deaths. The reassuring data on the Delta variant. There's no sign of a surge in hospitalization or severe illness, and the vaccines remain extremely effective. As the virus that causes COVID-19 evolves and mutates, the same concerns pop up about whether the variant evades vaccines, makes people sicker than the old versions, and increases transmissibility. What we know about the Delta variant is reassuring. Dr. Monica Gandhi, July 15, 2021, 604,568 deaths. First step is to show hospitalizations not increasing in kids with Delta. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, July 21, 2021, 606,039 deaths. The disease has been defanged. We actually should be declaring victory. We have done a fantastic job. We have developed a vaccine that has essentially turned this pandemic into something much milder. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, July 26, 2021, 607,367 deaths. We have protected the vulnerable. By vaccinating the older population, we have provided them with enormous protection against severe disease and death. That's why you see, even as the cases have risen in Sweden in the past wave, or in the UK in this past wave, and in Florida in this past wave, the numbers of death have not risen proportionally. Why? Because we protected the vulnerable. The key thing to me is hospitalizations and deaths from COVID. While we've done an incredible job at decoupling the cases from the deaths, the public focus on cases at this point, I think, only serves to panic people without actually serving any other public health purpose. I don't think the Delta variant changes the calculus or the evidence in any fundamental way. In Florida, in this past wave, the number of deaths have not risen proportionally. Why? Because we protected the vulnerable. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, July 28, 2021, 608,208 deaths. It is striking that COVID mortality is at such low levels, despite the fact that we are seeing an increase in cases of late. By immunizing the elderly and many other vulnerable people, we have provided them with excellent protection against severe disease in case they get infected. Also contributing is widespread natural immunity from recovered COVID patients. Though cases may rise, deaths will no longer follow in proportion. We have effectively defanged the disease with our successful vaccination rollout. We should be declaring a great and resounding success. The COVID emergency is over. We still need to take COVID seriously, and there are still vulnerable people here and abroad left to vaccinate. But we can start to treat it as one disease among many that afflict people, rather than an all-consuming threat. Dr. John Mandrola, July 29, 2021, 608,526 deaths. If you were vaccinated and had mild to moderate URI symptoms, why on earth would you get a COVID test? Have the vaccines not transformed SARS-CoV-2 into just another regular respiratory virus? Dr. Michael Levitt, August 1, 2021, 609,820 deaths. With no move in added reported COVID-19 deaths and Delta variant CFR from UK of 0.14%, it seems that Florida is likely to be fine. Dr. Zubin Damania, August 17, 2021, 620,152 deaths. Now, the thing is, it may take a little while. It may take multiple re-exposures, which is why a mix of boosters and natural infection. Delta may be a blessing to people who are vaccinated because it's going to quickly make this thing endemic. But to people who are unvaccinated, you are pretty much screwed. So just get vaccinated, all right? Dr. J. Bhattacharya, August 26, 2021, 631,948 deaths. With the vulnerable elderly and others with certain comorbid conditions now protected by the vaccine, high community prevalence of COVID no longer poses the risk of mortality it did in 2020. The virus now joins 200 other pathogens, give or take, in regular circulation in human societies. The war on COVID should be over. Dr. Monica Gandhi, September 4, 2021, 645,470 deaths. I truly think we are in the endgame. The cases will start plummeting in mid to late September, and by mid-October, we will be in a manageable place where the virus is a concern for health professionals, but not really for the general public. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, September 4, 2021, 645,470 deaths. The emergency phase of the disease is over. Now we need to work very hard to undo the sense of emergency. We should be treating COVID as one of 200 diseases that affect people. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, September 8, 2021, 650,921 deaths. Now that we have mostly vaccinated the vulnerable, the pandemic will end when the people say it is over. At that point, no amount of panic-mongering will work. Dr. Monica Gandhi, September 21, 2021, 676,768 deaths. We won't eradicate COVID. The pandemic will still end. In a matter of months, viral circulation in the United States could dwindle to levels so low we will no longer need to require masks, distancing, ventilation, asymptomatic testing, or contact tracing. Dr. Monica Gandhi, September 30, 2021, 696,943 deaths. COVID will soon be endemic, thank goodness. Widespread immunity, vaccinated and natural, will bring control and a full return to normal. With a highly transmissible variant driving up immunity in the unvaccinated and bolstering it in the vaccinated, COVID-19 will inevitably make the transition from epidemic to endemic. Dr. Monica Gandhi, October 6, 2021. 706,953 deaths. But even if we don't get our vaccination rates up, I think by the end of this year we will have enough immunity in our population, either through vaccination and natural infection. I think Delta will be the variant to end them all. Dr. Monica Gandhi, October 25th, 2021, 737,054 deaths. NYC's high rates of vax, some prior infection, and precautions keeping the worst outcomes of COVID-19 in check. We're on our way to an endemic phase. Dr. Monica Gandhi, November 3rd, 2021, 749,501 deaths. It's time to contemplate the end of the crisis. Immunity is rising, and the approval of shots for young children is one of the last thresholds before a return to greater normalcy. Americans should be asking ourselves, what else needs to happen before we can declare an end to the crisis phase of the pandemic? Although the coronavirus's course remains unpredictable and bad surprises are still possible, the Delta variant surge that started in early July ushered in what may have been the final major wave of disease in the United States. The U.S. still has more progress to make, but the reality is that the coronavirus is encountering fewer and fewer Americans who are defenseless against it. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, November 15, 2021, 763,391 deaths. Vaccinating children is neither necessary nor sufficient to end the pandemic. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, December 1st, 2021, 781,573 deaths. So I think now we can look and then do empirical studies to see if it is more severe and if, the Omicron variant, it does evade. It seems really unlikely, just from a first principles point of view, that because it's still the same virus with a few mutations, the other variants have not escaped natural immunity, have not escaped vaccine immunity in terms of protection against severe disease, and that's something we should tell the public. I mean, this is not something to panic about. We have many tools to address this, and we are in the process of developing new ones. Dr. Marty McCary, December 16th, 2021, 803,665 deaths. Now, I call it Omi-cold. If you look at the epidemiological data, the epicenter is now way down from Omicron. The hospitals have some hospitalizations, not much. They were short. They averaged 2.5 days instead of 8 days. But a study just came out of the University of Hong Kong telling us that Omicron does not invade the lung tissue that's deep in the respiratory tract. It stays superficial in the nose and bronchus. So that's why we're seeing a common cold-like illness. This new scientific data from the lab explains the epidemiological data and the bedside observation of doctors that this is far more mild, and that's why I call it Omi-cold. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, December 16th, 2021, 803,665 deaths. Focused protection by mass vaccinating the vulnerable, without coercion, will end the pandemic if we can muster the political will to accept the good news. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, December 18th, 2021, 806,208 deaths. With the new and effective technologies available and the focused protection ideas outlined in the GBD, we can end the pandemic if only we can muster the courage and political will to do so. As normal society resumes, the vast majority will find that living with a virus is not so hard after all. Dr. Marty McCary, January 2nd, 2022, 826,421 deaths. So we got a lot of good news this week. So for much of the world that will not have access to a vaccine, Omicron will be nature's vaccine. We can recognize that there is an end in sight to this particular variant as Omicron sweeps across many countries. Probably in the next few weeks, we will see Omicron peak, and it is spreading so quickly that it may even be accelerated further. Think of it as a bad flu season when about half of everybody you know will probably get this infection. It will confer immunity to Delta. That evidence is in. Dr. Zubin Damania, February 5th, 2022, 832,888 deaths. So there's a lot of existing immunity, all right? So that's very good news if it pans out further, because it says we have a less deadly virus that's more in the kin of a seasonal flu or a bad cold. You now have effectively an endemic virus that's with us every year, like the other 4 coronaviruses there. It's the 5th coronavirus. It causes Omicold, and we generate immunity from being infected by it. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, January 6th, 2022. 834,983 deaths. The disease now is defanged. Governments should be telling people about tools to get back to normal life. Dr. Lucy McBride, January 11th, 2022. 843,487 deaths. More people are becoming immune to COVID, but no one is immune to the stress of the pandemic. Dr. John Ioannidis, January 17th, 2022. 854,498 deaths. Omicron has the characteristics of an endemic wave: seasonal appearance, high rates of transmission, disproportionately low death burden in a setting where there is very high background immunity due to prior infection and/or vaccination. Doctors J. Bhattacharya, Harvey Risch, and Paul Alexander, January 23, 2022. 868,806 deaths. The time has come to terminate the pandemic state of emergency. It is time to end the controls, the closures, the restrictions, the plexiglass, the stickers, the exhortations, the panic-mongering, the distancing announcements, the ubiquitous commercials, the forced masking, the vaccine mandates. Omicron is mild enough that most people, even many high-risk people, can adequately cope with the infection. Omicron infection is no more severe than seasonal flu, and generally less so. Given that Omicron, with its mild infection, is running its course to the end, there is no justification for maintaining emergency status. Omicron is circulating, but it is not an emergency. The emergency is over. The current emergency declaration must be canceled. It is time. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, January 29, 2022. 885,931 deaths. To me, the term pandemic no longer has any epidemiological definition. It is a political term to designate whatever it is we just went through the last 2 years. So the end of the pandemic is a political decision, not an epidemiological one. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, January 31st, 2022. 889,023 deaths. If Democrats are pivoting away from lockdowns, the end of the pandemic may be nigh. Dr. Zubin Damania, February 13th, 2022. 920,546 deaths. Cases are plummeting, as we sort of predicted they would in December. We need to stop every single pandemic restriction, including vaccine mandates, including mask mandates, including kids wearing masks, including thinking about it, including hearing about it on the news. All of it, I want it gone. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, March 12th, 2022. 967,132 deaths. It is far past time to end the state of emergency in California, end the rule of the technocrats, and restore normal order. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, March 20th, 2022. 974,254 deaths. The pandemic, however, is drawing to a close as government after government has accepted the fact that the virus is here to stay forever, joining the 200 or so other pathogens that cause diseases in humans and the other circulating human coronaviruses. Dr. John Ioannidis, March 28, 2022. 980,671 deaths. Public health officials need to declare the end of the pandemic. With increasingly aging global population and massive testing, normal may still correspond to higher death counts than pre-COVID-19 influenza-related illnesses. This should not be mistaken as a continued pandemic phase. Pandemic preparedness should be carefully thought and pre-organized, but should not disrupt life. Dr. Marty McCary, May 2nd, 2022, 996,661 deaths. Hospitals are virtually empty of COVID-ill patients, yet the pandemic of fear continues. Dr. Monica Gandhi, May 15th, 2022, 1,001,883 deaths. Tools to keep COVID endemic now here. Long thread to explain that we now have all the tools necessary in the U.S. to keep COVID in the endemic and out of the emergency phase. At this point in the pandemic, May 22, world and U.S. seeing its lowest number of COVID deaths since March 2020. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, May 26, 2022. 1,006,353 deaths. It's far past time for the COVID state of emergency to end. No more biomedical security state. Dr. Vinay Prasad, June 2nd, 2022. 1,008,356 deaths. COVID-19 is really over when the New York Times health section returns to hard-hitting coverage such as, how many blueberries should you eat? How dark should your chocolate be? Is tea better than coffee? Can saunas prevent Alzheimer's? Dr. Vinay Prasad, June 29th, 2022, 1,017,930 deaths. We should treat COVID-19 exactly like flu 2018. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, July 12th, 2022, 1,022,237 deaths. The virus is endemic and will circulate forever. Most of the population has been infected and recovered and is protected versus future severe reinfection. The decision to end the pandemic emergency is a political one, not epidemiological. Dr. John Mandrola, July 27th, 2022, 1,029,290 deaths. We now have a diff disease. Many, if not most, COVID-plus patients we consult on have positive tests, but an admitting diagnosis for something else. The pneumonias of 2020-2021 are thankfully rare. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, August 16, 2022, 1,038,301 deaths. It's far past time for the U.S. COVID state of emergency declaration to end. Many states have already ended theirs. When the state of emergency ends, the oversized COVID industrial complex will end with it. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, August 22, 2022. 1,041,192 deaths. We've created an interest group to keep the pandemic going. Their argument is we're keeping people safe when in fact we're just keeping the anxiety going. Dr. Monica Gandhi, September 10th, 2022, 1,050,543 deaths. Population immunity in 2022, very different than COVID prior to immunity. We have widespread vaccines and 60 to 75% of planet having been infected with Omicron. Good to provide the good news of COVID immunity in 2022. Dr. Vinay Prasad, September 11th, 2022, 1,050,564 deaths. The new variant is less lethal. When you combine this with high rates of natural immunity and vaccination, the net result is simple. The IFR, infection fatality rate, for COVID-19 is now far less than flu. That's what many Americans intuitively get, which is why they have returned to normal. It also means policy needs to readjust. The emergency is over. Dr. Monica Gandhi, September 16, 2022, 1,053,621 deaths. We have all been questioning, when does COVID look like influenza? And I would say, yes, we are there. Dr. Vinay Prasad, September 18, 2022, 1,053,677 deaths. The emergency or pandemic phase is over. COVID will be around for tens of thousands of years. Time to stop using EUA at FDA and time to actively advise people to throw away their N95s and get back to living. Getting COVID is inevitable. Dr. J. Bhattacharya, September 19, 2022, 1,054,075 deaths. President Biden is right. The pandemic emergency is over. Dr. Monica Gandhi, December 13, 2022, 1,085,224 deaths. There are many reasons to be optimistic. A combination of factors: a high level of population immunity, Omicron family antigenic drift, convergence of mutations that seem to have hit an evolutionary ceiling, almost non-existent severe COVID illness in the hospital, and viral interference from RSV and influenza surges means we are in a surprisingly good place with COVID-19 in winter 2022-23. Hopefully, Dr. Gandhi is right, and we are in a surprisingly good place with COVID. But I've heard that before, often right before some new variant ruins everything. There will never be an official declaration that the pandemic is over. However, I will consider it over when these doctors stop telling us it is over, when they discuss COVID as often as they discuss outbreaks that have ended, such as the New York City's measles outbreak in 2019. These doctors have been saying, in essence, you should stop talking about COVID, but I should continue to tell you why you should stop. However, I feel they should model the behavior they expect from others.